fill your thirst beside the river. Wash the journey from your hands. Feel the comfort flow inside you. Come this far, you understand. Fear's not allowed, where dreams can be lost or found.
Hello and welcome to Healing Outside the Box. I'm Traci Crampton. I'm an energy practitioner.
And I'm Rosemary Lachance, and I'm a Reiki energy healer and a spiritual development advisor.
And we are dedicated to providing you with food for thought information and answers to alternative health questions, animal welfare, and healthy nutrition and lifestyle. We also cover topics such as environmental health, and we bring on many guest speakers in these areas to give you their expertise. There's an opportunity for you, the audience, to email your questions to us regarding any of these shows that you see, and we'd be happy to answer them on air. This show is for all of you who are actively seeking answers for your well-being and the well-being of your environment and our companions.
Our companion animals, yes.
Right? So tonight...
This is our 45th show, and the title of the show is The Plight of the Animals, Part 3. And we have with us tonight Joanne Bourbeau. What is it? Bourbeau. She's a senior state director in Vermont and New Hampshire from the Humane Society of the United States. Joanne Bourbeau joined the Humane Society of the United States in 1995 and currently services as senior state director for Vermont and New Hampshire. The Humane Society of the United States is the nation's largest animal protection organization, backed by 11 million Americans, or one out of every 28. For more than half a century, the Humane Society has been fighting for the protection of all animals through advocacy, education, and hands-on programs. Joanne earned her bachelor's degree in animal science from the University of New Hampshire in 1987, and her certificate in nonprofit business management from Johns Hopkins University in 2001. For 6 years, she served as shelter manager for the New Hampshire SPCA in Stratham, New Hampshire. As a state director, Joanne oversees the local implementation of National Humane Society programs and campaigns, which are designed to support our mission to confront animal cruelty and celebrate animals. Among the organization's top priorities are ending abuses at puppy mills, factory farms, and in the wild, along with increasing the scope and enforcement of animal protection laws and policies. The organization also has a cadre of direct animal care centers throughout the country, including our Wildlife Rehabilitation Center right here in New England on Cape Cod. A native New Englander, Joanne and her husband George live in Whittingham, Vermont with their 4-year-old daughter Cadence and 3 cats, all animal shelter adoptees. Wonderful. Welcome, Joanne. So nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. And I think we wanted to mention to the audience that this is our 3rd show on the plight of animals. So if you've tuned in before, you've seen some of our previous shows.
Right, this is part 3.
Part 3.
And we keep going on and on with it. So, the first question we always ask is, what made you get into this kind of work?
Well, I have to say it was actually mostly by accident. I didn't know about animal shelters until I started working at one. And when I graduated from the university with a degree in animal science, obviously I knew I wanted to work with animals. I did not want to be a veterinarian necessarily. And it looked like an interesting job, and I was hooked instantly. I just knew that this is what I was meant to do, was work on behalf of animals, and 20 years later I'm still doing it and still enjoying it.
Wow.
That's great. That's really great. So, Let's start out with the subject of animal cruelty. What is animal cruelty? How do you define it at the Humane Society?
Animal cruelty encompasses a wide range of behaviors from neglect. I think most people can sympathize with having witnessed a dog at the end of a chain with little food or water, no veterinary care, no shelter, to the more egregious intentional acts of animal cruelty where animals are intentionally hurt or tortured or killed, and everything in between.
I know I've seen dogs, in backyards tied to. They buy them, put them in in a dog house outside with a big fence, and that's it.
Right.
Forget it. That's horrible. And these kinds of things need to be reported for it to stop. So why is this a concern?
I think it's a concern for the community. I don't think that animal cruelty is the animal shelters or animal control's problem. I think it's a community problem. It requires a community solution. It requires everyone in the community to care, to report something that they see that they know is not right, and all the way up to law enforcement to enforce animal cruelty laws.
You're right.
And they're criminal laws just like any law, and violence is violence. It doesn't matter who the victim is.
That's right. Animals have feelings just like we do.
Exactly.
They want to be treated nice. They don't want to be tortured or killed or starved or all the things that they do to these poor things.
Exactly.
Do you think that the present economy is affecting this problem overall? Are you seeing an increase, or?
There definitely is an increase in the number of animals that are being relinquished to animal shelters and municipal facilities. I'd say throughout the country.
People can't afford to
because they can't afford them. I hear of more animals being abandoned because of the mortgage crisis and people losing their homes through foreclosure. Animals are left in the homes or left to run free. I don't know if it's affecting the how animals are treated overall, but certainly abandonment and relinquishment numbers have increased.
Wow.
Exactly.
Because of
So
that.
the shelters must be getting very full.
They're bursting at the seams already, so this certainly does not help. And when the economy starts to go down, then everyone suffers. I mean, human services suffer, animal services suffer, budgets get cut, and it's very disturbing when you see towns like Bridgeport that have very low budget for animal control, and one or two animal control officers on the road who are trying to do an incredible job. That's hard when they have the resources to do it. So it makes it tough for everybody.
Why would anyone be cruel to animals? Why do you think?
Well, there are a wide range of motives for animal cruelty, and many of them mirror the same range of motives you'll see for somebody who might be violent for other reasons. But power and control is certainly one of them.
Power.
Animals are abused as pawns sometimes in a domestic violence situation where they know that if they threaten to harm or kill or actually harm or kill somebody's animal, they can stop them from leaving by threatening that. We see kids who are might be exploring behaviors, or it might be peer pressure that's causing them to have these behaviors. But there's a whole host of different motives for animal cruelty.
I had read once where some of it was that people were treated badly when they were children. They were never made to feel special, never made to feel like they were good enough. And then when they think about an animal, somebody being nice to an animal, they can't stand it because they say, why should it be nice to the animal? Nobody was ever nice to
or
me.
Maybe it's just because
psychologically.
the animal can't talk back. They can have a sense of superiority for once, and they play that out on the animal.
Exactly, and they have no control over what's happening to them. So that by having control over the animal, they've got some control over that situation, over their life, even though it's a negative. Obviously, it certainly is part of it.
So people that are cruel to animals really need to get some help, some psychology, some psychotherapy. They really do.
In fact, here in Connecticut and in many states, it's something that a judge can order as part of the probation, is that they get mandatory psychiatric evaluation. I think especially with juveniles.
Especially juveniles, right?
It's very important that they get
help. It's often
help.
a sign of a bigger problem developing.
They try to pass a law for
Exactly.
that, I had read, right? But it didn't make it yet.
To make it mandatory.
Didn't do it yet.
It's tough to make make the courts do anything that's mandatory, obviously. But I think that when we look at especially young children who are performing these behaviors, that's a red signal. It's a red flag that has to be. We need to address it, and by just letting it go and saying boys will be boys, what does that child learn from that situation? Absolutely nothing.
That's not something you can say when it comes to an animal, because that's a life. It's a
No,
life. It's
even-
not a toy. You know, it's a life.
I'm very
And
conscious, even when my children like step on a bug or something.
Right.
I'm very
Yeah.
conscious of,
I am
I've
too.
always brought my children up like
Yeah.
that. Don't
So
hurt any
important.
not an ant, not anything. Don't hurt anything. We have bugs in the house, we take them outside.
Right, and they
Yeah.
get desensitized if they're never told differently.
That's right. They do. They really, really do. Is there a connection between animal cruelty and human violence? There is,
There
isn't
most
there?
definitely is, and the psychological criminology studies that have been done the past 25 years have shown again and again that the close link between animal cruelty and human violence, both domestic violence, violence to children, to elders, they're all connected. And the FBI recognized this link even in the early 1970s when they found that just about every serial killer, when they were a child themselves, abused animals, tortured animals. And not to say that every child who neglects or abuses an animal is going to turn into a serial killer, but virtually every serial killer has had a history of that. So it's a warning signal that we need to take seriously.
I know. People really need to do that.
So what happens when the authorities prosecute someone on an animal cruelty case? What is the process? And
It's the same process as any criminal trial would be. There has to be probable cause if you're going to seize animals, to get a search warrant and get the animals out of a home. If it comes to where we're actually prosecuting somebody, then they may have a jury trial where the jury has to decide whether a crime was actually committed, and the judge has the ability to, as I mentioned earlier, either mandate psychological counseling or disallow them from owning animals for a certain period of time. But the tough part is when their probation is over, sometimes you've got a clean slate, and these people tend to move from city to city, from state to state, especially the animal hoarding phenomenon, where you have people who've got large numbers of animals who accumulate.
yeah, that's an interesting issue.
It is. It's fascinating to look at
a lot of
people,
animals living in neglect.
right? And the people are living in the same squalor. So it's not only a concern for the animals, but it's a concern for the people as well. And we really recommend a task force approach to the animal hoarding phenomenon, because there are so many things going on. There's public health issues. There's animal cruelty issues. There's self-care issues with the person who's doing this. Sometimes you find people who are well-intentioned, start even an animal rescue organization, then find that they can't stop collecting animals. They can't afford to care for them any longer, but they also can't. They can't see what is going on around them. Oftentimes there are dead animals in the home that they're just ignoring. Animals in the freezer, in the refrigerator, in the backyard. Just animals everywhere. And it's there's not the other issue is there aren't a lot of good treatments for animal hoarding. It's a very complex phenomenon, and there are different motives and different treatments, and they're usually not very successful. And the recidivism rate is nearly 100%. So even if somebody were convicted of animal cruelty, hoarding animals, they could be convicted, they could go to jail, and they get out of jail and just continue to do it again if they don't get the psychological help that they need.
That really needs to be made
Yeah, because
mandatory.
that really is a psychiatric problem. That is not. I mean, these people don't go into it, like you said, with bad intentions.
Right. It's not intentional, but
to hurt
the
the
neglect
animals.
and the suffering is the same on the other
same,
end. But just I think sending an animal abuser to jail is not the only answer. I definitely see a trend towards bigger fines, longer penalties, and I think the public is pushing for that. Usually when there's an animal case, you'll get people who are protesting, who write letters to the prosecutor, who want to see those strong penalties and fines. And we've seen since 1992, when we first introduced our First Strike program, which is dedicated to that issue, the link between animal cruelty and human violence, that the number of state animal cruelty laws that are felonies has skyrocketed, and we've got a few more states to go, but we've got over 40 states that have felony provisions, like we have here in Connecticut, for those real egregious, aggravated cases where it's intentional. And that's usually where the line is drawn, is the intent versus not knowing and neglecting an animal. It's still a crime, but it's a lesser crime.
Yeah, I mean, I would wonder why even the judges and the legislature doesn't realize how horrible that is for an animal to go through what they go through, that they don't make it that mandatory to get that person help. Because like you said, they can get out and keep on going. I don't understand why they don't see that. I just can't understand that. People in those positions don't, you know.
Well, I think there is there are people who think they still have that division between, we humans and these animals, and, human rights put first all the time instead of being on equal levels, and that we all need to be taken care of. Not saying it's right. I just think that's still part of the mentality. Yeah.
You're right. It's a mentality, and it's just a horror to think, to hurt somebody. Like, I mean, if you go home and hit your dog, you hear him cry. Just that little thing. Oh, I have to get off my soapbox. Can people if people see cruelty, can they report it anonymously?
They can. An anonymous tip may, in and of itself, may not give the investigator enough information to actually follow through with a conviction. If an anonymous tip is made and they're able to corroborate it, either from their own firsthand investigation, going to the property and seeing it for themselves, or finding somebody else who will be willing to give their name and contact info. Obviously, we prefer, people that happens, but I think people are also very scared of retaliation.
Yes.
They're scared of reporting their neighbors.
Yes.
I do a presentation on the First Strike connection, and there's a picture of Jeffrey Dahmer's childhood home with the head of a dog on a stick in his backyard that was photographed. And somebody had to take that photograph. Somebody else witnessed that, but they never reported it. So, obviously we'll take any information that we can that might lead to something, but, I don't want that to scare people from making the report. If they wish to remain anonymous, they can, but they also have to understand that if it can't be corroborated, it might not lead to
But they will go out. The police will go out there and check out the situation, right?
Hopefully, and we also have in Connecticut, the Department of Ag has state humane agents who are state animal control officers who also do investigations throughout the state, work hand in hand with the local animal control agencies and law enforcement agencies on making sure these cases are investigated.
So what can I do personally to help fight animal cruelty? Each and every one of us, what can we do?
I think that number one is report animal cruelty, even if you don't know if it's against the law. Reporting something that you just know is not right, even if it leads to nothing, I think is very important. So reporting it, recognizing it, helping us when we're at the State House trying to advocate for stronger penalties, better laws for animals, making that phone call to your own legislator and asking them to support animal-friendly legislation. In Connecticut, we're lucky to have a sort of a political arm of the animal welfare community. Connecticut Votes for Animals is a brand new 501c4 that was started by the ASPCA and the Animal Welfare Federation of Connecticut, and in just less than a year of being out there have been a really strong force for animals in the political arena. And I think we as individuals who care about animals need to make sure our legislators know that these issues are important to us.
They're having they're getting together a forum at Quinnipiac College next Sunday, and I've already sent in my money, and a friend of mine, we're going to go to that. Connecticut Votes for Animals.
Wonderful.
That's what it was.
Yes.
Yeah, I hope they're going to get a wonderful turnout. So any of you out there who want to go there, it's this next Sunday, not this
they
next
might not
Sunday.
Even show this
No,
tape
not
by then.
Sunday, Saturday. Oh, that's right. You may not get
dated.
this tape to see this tape in time. North Haven, you might. If you see that in North Haven, you can go, and it's this Saturday. Would be the 20th, I think. Okay.
And I would encourage your viewers to also to become members of Connecticut Votes for Animals. Another great way to have your voice heard.
And they can check it online. They can find go online, Connecticut Votes for Animals, and a website comes up and will tell you how you can help them.
How are we doing throughout New England on this effort, and maybe throughout the nation?
Well, I think New England, the Animal Legal Defense Fund has done some national studies looking at animal cruelty laws from state to state, and we typically in New England are in the top tier of strong animal cruelty laws. Meaning we have felony provisions, we might have some other things that that are not in other laws. So we're doing pretty well, I think. There's always room for improvement, obviously, but I think looking at other states, we're doing pretty well in New England. We also, I think New Englanders are a bit more savvy on animal issues too. We see a lot fewer dogs here because we've been so aggressive with spay-neuter campaigns and offering low-cost clinics for folks. The cat situation is another. It is still just exploding and terrible. But I think that we're doing okay. But we can always use improvement. We're always looking at ways that we can tweak something to make it better, and to sometimes just make baby steps, and those lead to, I think, more overall improvements that help.
The cat situation could be helped greatly by just getting their cat spayed or neutered, right? I, for one, don't like cats being out on the street. I think she should be kept in the house. But if you insist on letting them go outside where they can get killed or eaten by some wild animal or whatever, get tortured by someone, all right, but at least get them spayed or neutered. I know, you're right.
Definitely. And collars, too. I think people tend to think, oh, my cat doesn't wear a collar. It takes, they think the hawk's going to come and take them away. All these myths out there about what's going to happen to their cat if they put a collar on it. But the truth is, a collar is their ticket home. And if we see a lot fewer cats being reunited with their owners because people don't identify their cats where they will their dogs, because they're mandated to have a license, a dog license, and a rabies tag. So that gives them the impetus to put a collar on their dog too. And I think it's just more well established that people do that.
Dogs and the cats.
Cats definitely they don't get the same status in society as dogs do.
I don't know
Even
why.
though there are more cats in this world than there are
shame,
dogs in homes.
Well, maybe because they're not like dogs that just come up to you and just love you to pieces and all that. But cats.
Well, the dogs know they need to be taken care of, and the cats are independent.
Yeah.
I think you really have to have a cat to love a cat too. I've had friends who just, I always hated cats until I got two, and then now they're more fanatic than I am about my cats, which is unbelievable to me. So I think that what you said about being independent. I don't think they're all like that. I certainly have, my cats are not all, they want to be with me, and they'll come when I call them and so forth.
They're loving
the feral cat population of free-roaming cats out there that aren't attached to anybody, that aren't owned by somebody, is skyrocketing, and we need to address it through aggressive spay-neuter and education. And there are a lot of groups here in Connecticut that are doing trap, neuter, return, and doing a wonderful job of taking it upon themselves to care for these animals.
Yeah,
and
that
not
was a
expecting
question
the
of
shelter to
the
take
feral cats, because I know they pose some risks and some other complications. But we certainly want homes for them all. So what do we do?
Well, the truly feral cat that does not want any human contact and is actually stressed out if you tried to make them a house cat, those are the cats that typically, in a colony situation, I think are better off, because they are not stressed as long as they're spayed and neutered, vaccinated against rabies, and there is a caregiving community, whether it's one or two people or several people who are feeding them and making sure they have shelter from the cold, and making their life as good as it can be. I'd want every cat to be a house cat too and live on somebody's lap, but I don't think it's reasonable, and the shelters are bursting at the seams, so they can't, they don't have the time or the resources to socialize feral cats, and depending on how long they've been in the colony, that could take a very long time. It would never happen. They just are always going to be like that. They're wild. They're twice, 3 times removed from a domestic animal.
And that's from people letting them out there without being spayed and neutered, and then they stay out, and the longer the years they stay out and have babies. So ultimately, it's still our fault that this ever happened. And I do know some neighborhoods where they do that. All the neighbors band together and they do that, and that's wonderful. That's really, really wonderful. So I'm really happy. And I do Reiki on animals a lot, because I just adore animals. And the people that I go to, they're just so wonderful. It just makes my heart swell. When you get people like that, they'll do everything for their animal, and that's so wonderful. So I don't want to just put everyone down, because there are people who are just so wonderful, so. All right, well, okay. The next thing we want to talk about is the dog fighting.
Dog fighting, yeah. Which we touched on in the past, but we didn't get too deep into this.
Okay, and what is dog fighting, and how does it cause the dog suffering? As if I didn't know, but tell the audience.
Well, dog fighting is a sadistic contest, usually between two dogs who are specifically bred and trained to fight. The American Pit Bull Terrier is sort of the breed of choice, but other dogs have been involved with fighting as well. They're put into a pit, and they're in there. They fight until one is too injured to get up anymore, or possibly dies. And it's terrible. I mean, these dogs have very strong jaws. They can give very brutal injuries to each other. You see dogs who are the victims of animal fighting with scars on their head and their front legs, where they just have gone through battle after battle after battle. And the dogs who don't win also are often killed or culled because they're not winners. And it's associated with gambling, prostitution, illegal guns. I mean, all sorts of other crimes. It's just horrible. And the Michael Vick case, I think, brought animal fighting to the forefront of America's mind, where it's like, God, is this really happening in our country?
I know, it's insane to think that it's still actually happening. Like I when that whole case came out, I was shocked because I thought that was something of the past.
Yeah, no, unfortunately it's not. And that's organized fighting. And another problem is street fighting, where gangs will have pit bulls and just have an impromptu fight on the street with them.
Oh, wow.
And, the same thing, they lay bets down, and the dogs fight, till one can't move, or, again, possibly killed. And that is very hard. I mean, it's very hard to infiltrate an organized animal fighting ring, and it's also very hard to catch somebody in the act of these impromptu fights that happen very quickly on the streets, and they're not necessarily prearranged, but they just happen.
Wow.
The only way to stop this, I guess, is the education. I read somewhere, I saw it online or somewhere, where somebody's teaching these youths that do that how to train their dogs. And they're getting so excited about that they're not fighting them anymore.
Yes.
I read something about that.
There are a couple programs out there. There's one that Sue Sternberg does. She's in New York, and she's been doing this with having dogs, instead of a contest where they're killing each other, is where they're pulling weights or a cart or something, and they can sort of still show how macho they are. And the HSUS has been very involved with some programs in Chicago, and we're rolling it out to some other cities now, where we have reformed dog fighters who are talking to kids, because that's where it starts.
Yes.
You can go into any classroom in this country and ask kids if they've seen animal fighting. Maybe there might be some areas where you wouldn't see this as much, but you'll generally get some kids will say, yeah, we fight animals, or I've seen animal fighting, and these are young kids.
Amazing.
And they're taught that it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It's encouraged. It's part of their society. It's part of their culture. It's part of their gang, whatever it is. And we need to work with these kids so they can see the positive benefits of working with animals, whether it's teaching them to be, how to have behavior, there are so many positive outlets that kids could have with animals, and seeing them as animals and not just killing machines, which is what a lot of these kids view them as.
And
that's all they're good for.
And then you have a whole society that's got this fear of pit bulls because they've gotten such a bad reputation.
And it's not the pit bull per se.
No.
It's just because they're so strong. And I've read where they're so loyal, they'll do anything for their owners.
Exactly.
Anything they want, because they're very loving. I've seen some at one of the animal shelters, and he was just
great
wanted love so much.
Look at our gang, the Petey, he was a pit bull. He was, the kids were hanging out with him, and they definitely have gotten a bad rap in our society, and it's usually you can look at not too far from the leash and see where the problem is. It's not the dog, it's the owner who was either bred, trained, or encouraged that type of behavior.
Exactly. I know the only answer is stiffer laws, stiffer penalties, and education. Educating these young people right up to adults.
Yes.
Right through, because they all have these problems.
And I think, a lot of people need to be educated as to what kind of pet is right for them, if they should even have a pet,
Certainly.
Is this right for your household, your children, your lifestyle, the amount of room you have. I mean, there's so many factors. And
that always makes me think of the dog at the end of the chain. I mean, why is that dog there? They got the dog as a puppy. The kids wanted it, but they didn't really research the breed. All of a sudden, it was a big dog. It was getting on the couch. It wasn't neutered, whatever the reason. And it's just easy to put it in the backyard and forget about it.
Yeah.
But if they really did their research on the front end and realized that maybe a puppy wasn't the right thing for their family at that time, or at least this breed of dog, maybe things would be different for that animal. But it always always amazes me how somebody could treat an animal like it's a lawn ornament and not a member of the family.
I don't understand that kind of thinking, that kind of mentality. I do not understand it at all. I can't comprehend. We had Bob from the New Haven Animal Shelter who spoke about that. Remember how they screen the people, all those things you mentioned. He's a wonderful guy, and he does a lot of really great work. So why should dogfighting be a felony offense?
Well, I think because of the stronger penalties keep the dog fighters out of the state. So we're lucky that every state in the country has felony level dog fighting right now. Some are stronger than others in that they also have felony for even just being a spectator at a fight and so forth. So we have, I think, a pretty good law here in Connecticut with regard to that. But we need to treat this as serious a crime as it is.
They say everything that's negative has a positive side, so I have to say, in all earnestness, that Michael Vick, if he wasn't such a star, they would never have come out because he did this thing, it brought out
awareness.
Much more,
And now he's working, hopefully, to redeem himself and working with us and talking to young kids about what got him into it and to try to steer them down a different path.
And we mustn't forget there were so many other men involved with that that did the exact same thing he did.
Right.
So what are they doing?
Yeah, this is an interesting thought too. Is should being a spectator be considered a felony? Is that? Can we reach out into that?
It is, and it should be because they're the ones who make the reason for the fight. They're encouraging
betting
They're
on
paying an admission fee to get in. They're gambling while they're there. They're the bread and butter of the animal fighting industry.
It's like hiring a prostitute. I mean, you're like, you're paying for that service, so that's
That's
crime
why they
in
get
of
arrested.
itself.
Right.
Johns get arrested, so to speak. Why not, them? You're right. It's true. If people could just get that mentality that the animals have feelings. Life, it's a life. It's created by God. They're our little brothers and sisters. They really are. But and now, I've been reading about cockfighting.
Yeah,
I'm reading cockfighting. What
and
is
finch
that?
fighting here in Connecticut.
Finch fighting, yes.
Just when I
Finch
thought
fighting.
I'd heard everything.
Yeah, me too. It was on the web and on the news.
This happened at the end of July in Shelton.
Birds.
They train these little
tell
finches.
People, go ahead and tell people
Well,
about
they seized, I think, 150 of these finches from this home in Shelton, Connecticut. They arrested 19 people. And they were raising them and training them just like they do the gamecocks in cockfighting, where they were, allegedly getting steroids and being trained to fight. And they were betting on them. They found $8,000 in cash in the home when they raided the place. And 19 people were arrested.
People can't find any other way to entertain themselves.
I know.
I mean, really.
It's basically anything that I guess you can gamble on. And when I read that, I was like, I think I've seen everything now. And then something else happens. But, it's the same. And people are doing it for what they see as a sport. It's incomprehensible to you and I, but they're raising
gambling,
these
I think,
birds.
is certainly on the rise. Anytime the economy dips, it's gambling.
And they're raising these birds specifically, raising and training them for fighting. And again, I mean, the fights don't last as long as the dog fights do, but the same result is the birds are injured or killed, or sometimes both of the birds are killed in the process. They attach these razor sharp gaffs to the back of their feet, so when they fight, they actually slice each other. And it's pretty terrible.
I cannot comprehend. I cannot. If only people would put themselves in the places of these animals just for a minute. There was a movie I saw a long time ago called Powder. I don't know if you ever saw that. Did you see it? And this man had the ability to make the person feel what other people were feeling. And the man was a hunter, and he shot a deer. And as the deer was dying, the man happened to be there. And he put his hand on the deer and on the person. And the man felt every single thing that the deer felt, all the fear, all the pain, all the suffering. The man never hunted again. But I'm going to say, and I'm going out on a limb here, whatever's done to an animal will be done back to the person, if not in this life.
It's a karmic. Yeah,
it's a karmic thing. It will
like
be there, and it will happen back. And I have to say that because this is just so horrible. I can't hardly stand it. It's like I die a little bit every time I hear some cruelty like that. So what do they do with the cockfighting? And how does it cause the animal suffering?
Well, as I mentioned, they with the razor sharp.
They put it on the cocks
they
too?
put them on their legs, and I mean the animals are they're things. They're not treated like a bird would be treated.
They're commodities. Yep,
they're
that's all they are.
commodities, exactly, and they're the way they are bred and the way they're housed and so forth are just horrific, and at the end of the day, they're thrown away with the beer cans.
Yeah, I was curious, are there any situations where, like, after a fight, some of these animals are brought into the shelters, or
I mean,
are
if
there
there's
situations
an
like
arrest,
that, if there's an arrest, and
yeah, and they
that?
have been. I mean, they're very. It's very difficult though, because most shelters, especially here in Connecticut, you've got municipal dog pounds where you might have a few cages for dogs. You might have some cats if you're lucky, but the space is an issue. There was an article in the paper not too long ago about they were calling it the Finch Protection Program. They were talking about the amount of care that has gone into caring for 150 birds every day, and the burden has been on the state animal control, both in human resources as well as money to care for these animals, and it's a huge burden for these shelters to have to hold these animals for a long period of time. And no, they wouldn't make appropriate homes. They've been raised and trained to fight. With dogs, we saw in the Vic case, and we're now advocating for behavioral assessment for dogs when there sees an animal fighting investigation. If certainly if dogs are. Maybe you've got dogs who just have been not bred that well, and they just don't have that will and that desire to fight. That some dogs that have been bred, over and over again, where that gene is in there, and those animals are not safe in a community. So you need to look at every animal as an individual, and whether they can be rehabilitated and put back into a community has to be a decision that's made very carefully.
Yes. So the cocks and the finches, they never get placed.
I don't
they
know.
Just
I'm
stay?
not sure what's going to go on with the finches, because this is the first I've ever heard of finches being involved with this. I really don't know.
And the cocks, the cocks can't be.
I don't know that there's ever been a case where they have been rehomed or relocated, but
They would just stay somewhere in cages for the rest of their life.
Well, unless there was some way to ensure that they wouldn't be a danger.
I just had a thought. For our audience out there, if you all want to give to some kind of charity, these are the different charities you can give to help the animals. Some of you who have a lot of money would do a wonderful thing for your soul if you could do more to help these animals in the way of giving money to help these people who are trying to do this work.
Or through adoption.
It's usually done by people who don't have much money. They just give their time. But all of you who have the money, this is a good thing to do, believe me.
Absolutely.
Is there a trend toward treating the crime of cockfighting more seriously?
There is. It's not a felony in all 50 states like dogfighting is. I think it should be.
Yes.
We just recently closed the loop on the final states that it wasn't even a crime. So it is now a crime in every state, and it's a felony in 39 states. So we're getting there. We've got a little way to go. A little ways to go, certainly. But again, you see the different social status of dogs versus birds. I mean, why is the penalty for cockfighting any different than dogfighting? It should
Still
be.
a life.
Yeah, right. It's still a life. Okay, you can't go, come here, boy, or anything like that, but it's still a life.
Right.
And I have had an experience in Germany where this chicken, the people had them on the little chicken farm, but each house has a few chickens. And I never had anything to do with a chicken. And we're walking by and we're standing there looking at them. They're so beautiful. And this one chicken hopped on the fence. There was like a little walkway on the fence and stood there. And I wanted to pet it, but I was afraid it would run. Well, I put my hand to pet it. It didn't run. It let me pet it. It let all the people pet it, and it stayed there. And when we finished petting it, it started to walk away, turned around, looked at us again, and then jumped off. And I said, "Oh my God, look at that!"
They're amazing animals. The
Beautiful.
friends I have
They're
who own
very
chickens,
smart.
they are fanatic about their chickens. They're smart. They're friendly.
They are.
My daughter,
They're easy to keep.
she's good with them. She can
Free
just scoop
eggs.
them up and pet them.
Yeah.
There's no issue.
So what can people do to stop the cockfighting too now?
Well, we have two things that people can do to stop both dog and cockfighting. We have a tip line, which is 1-877-TIP-HSUS. and if they suspect there is animal fighting going on, they can call that number. We have a $5,000 reward for information leading to arrest and conviction.
Good.
Wow.
We've paid out 50. So we have. Hopefully that will instill some people who, even if it's just for monetary gain, would tip a complaint of animal cruelty. The Attorney General's office here in Connecticut also has a hotline, a tip line, which is 860-808-5180. But if you can remember 1-877-TIP-HSUS, that's a toll-free line.
1-877-TIP-HSUS.
Can they go on the web or and to get those numbers too?
Yes, they can.
On Humane Society? Okay.
HumaneSociety.org, yes.
Okay, that's great.
And just type in dog fighting or animal fighting and they'll find it.
All right. I just wanted to touch briefly, just to say that I had gotten this from you. There were some animal bills that were introduced, but they never. These are laws that were introduced, but they did die. And hopefully, with help from you people out there, we can introduce them again. One was abuse of elephants, animal research, battery cages, big cats, body crushing and leg hold traps,
Oh, yeah.
confinement, domestic violence and animal abuse, and juvenile animal abuse. And the juvenile animal abuse was what we talked about,
Yeah,
making
it's
it mandatory
reporting.
for the juveniles to get some help.
Right.
These all didn't make it through, so I hope that we'll keep these laws alive. And you can find this all on the Humane Society website. Okay? All right. Now, what about hunting? Tell us about the hunting and exotic pet ban that was signed by the governor.
Yes. We, well, in response to the high-profile mauling from Travis, the 200-pound gorilla,
Yes.
who mauled
Oh, yeah,
this
that was-
Poor thing.
woman in Stamford, there was an outcry for stronger protection. And certainly the ban of exotics as wildlife is one of the priorities of the HSUS as well. And we don't feel that any exotic animal really makes an appropriate pet.
Yeah.
Right. They have-
We were looking for a more all-inclusive bill, but we did get at least a ban on hominids, including gorillas, orangutans, chimpanzees, that can't be owned as personal pets. There are exemptions for zoos and accredited facilities, of course. So these now are banned as pets, and we were also able to ban internet hunting. Finally, we've been trying for several years to ban that here in Connecticut.
What is internet hunting?
Internet hunting is, it was actually started in Texas, where this person started this website, and you can go on a website and with the click of your mouse have control of a real gun that's pointed at a real animal somewhere else.
My
Oh, my God.
And they have baiting stations where they'll lure the animal to the gun.
Oh, my God.
And the person can actually shoot the animal over the internet.
Oh, my. That's a sport.
That's
That's
right.
a sport.
And,
That is unbelievable. That's a sport. Oh, I'm going to get really
This is
angry
actually one
now.
issue where we have been on the same side with the hunting
and
community.
talk about detachment.
That's a
I mean,
sport.
you think you're playing a video game. I mean,
Exactly.
this is
And when I
terrible.
testified to legislators about this, I saw a lot of jaws dropping down to the floor because people just can't comprehend it. And any responsible hunter would be against this abhorrent practice as well. And they were actually, on our same side as wanting to ban this. Luckily, we've banned it in several dozen states since this happened, and the
Whoa,
website was
I
quickly
have
shut
never
down.
heard of that. That's the first.
Yeah,
I didn't
it's-
either.
yeah.
I didn't either.
Just when you think you've heard of everything, you hear something else.
I've
It's
heard
like,
of
oh my God.
men who have a lot of land, capture animals and put them on as preserve.
Yes,
and they
canned
can only
hunting.
run a certain spot, a certain place, and they can go right up to them and shoot them.
Right.
That's a sport. That's not a sport.
That's canned
I'm
hunting.
sorry. As far as I'm concerned with hunting, give the animal the same rights. Give them the gun. It's with the hunter,
Right.
and that's a
Right.
sport. But it's not a sport to hide and stalk and trap and do all these things for the animals. It's
Right.
not sport to me.
And
That's
we
not
try to
sport.
focus our efforts on, of course we're an animal welfare organization, so we're not pro hunting, but we don't focus our resources on all hunting. We focus them on the most egregious types of hunting. What you mentioned, canned hunting, leg hold traps that were mentioned. I mean, those should have been banned.
Oh, my God.
Years ago. And you see a very small percentage of the population, especially here in Connecticut, that hunts anymore, and they have they still have a very large lobby at the State House and the ear of legislators. And I think that if you did a survey of Connecticut residents and asked them whether the leg hold trap should be banned, I think resoundingly they'd say yes. But it's been very tough. We did try that this year and once again failed. There was a case where I think it was a great horned owl that was caught in a leg hold trap and subsequently had to be euthanized. That brought this to the forefront again in the media. But it's tough. I think legislators do care about animal issues, and I think it's a bipartisan issue. It's not, it's not Democrats versus Republicans. I mean, everybody is, you can find people who are animal lovers and who want to help animals. But we just, like I said earlier, we just need to be more vocal about these things and make sure we get these practices shut down.
I found a rabbit that had a leg hold trap on in a yard a while back.
Yeah.
It's terrible to see. The egg was just hanging off. The bone was sticking. It's just horrible.
Dogs, cats. I mean, there's all sorts of
and
stuff.
And he had to be put to sleep too.
Yeah.
It's just.
I don't think they have any place in a modern society.
No.
Now, what is the puppy lemon law?
The puppy lemon law.
Puppy lemon law is puppy lemon law / a puppy mill bill, where it does a few things. It increases right now. There is a law that requires pet shops who sell animals who are either ill or who die from an injury that they had when they were sold. They have to give a remedy to the consumer. It was increased to from 15 to 20 days. So within 20 days of the purchase of an animal from a pet store, you can go back to the pet store if you can prove the animal was ill or sick when it was purchased, and either get another animal or get a refund for your animal. And that's the important part, is because once you've had an animal for 3 weeks, you've bonded with it. You're not going to want to give it up because it's sick. You want
to make it better.
You want to make it better.
Yeah, and what would they do if you give it back to them again? They just sell to someone else the same way. So
exactly.
That's not an answer.
It also increased the remedy, the financial remedy. They have to, I believe it's went from $250 to $500 that they can get reimbursed for veterinary costs and so forth. It also included congenital defects and within 6 months of purchase, so it broadens the type of things that could be qualified for reimbursement. It also exempts pet shops from this requirement if they spay or neuter. This for cats only. Sell cats who are already spayed or neutered to try to help with the overpopulation problem we have here in Connecticut as well.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second.
Sure.
You talked about the congenital. I just did Reiki on two dogs. What is it? The King Charles
Spaniel.
Spaniel. They're beautiful. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But the people who the puppy mills, they breed them, and they don't breed them right. And what happens is the brain gets too big for the head. Now I know a couple. I'm doing Reiki on a couple. They had to go to this place in North Carolina, who it's not done around here a lot by veterinarians. They had to actually cut open the back of the head, put some, fat in it, and leave the bone open so that as the brain grows, it can expand. Yeah, the skull will grow over again.
Wow.
But these people love their animals so much, and they spent all this money, which they were able to do on these animals, and they are just absolute adorable. But she's trying to get something done because they do this. They keep breeding these.
Yes.
Real breeders don't do that. They know how to do it right.
Right.
But if you buy one of those from a pet store, beware.
Yeah, right.
And if they don't get this operation, the animal suffers so badly, stroke, paralyzed, can't breathe, they die. It's terrible. You've heard of that, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. And the other portion of this new law is to address the puppy mill situation, both a consumer right to know and consumer protection. I think as well as animal welfare. They require the pet shop to actually have a certificate from of the place of origin, so they have to disclose where the animal came from. And I can guarantee if the animal came from a broker out in the Midwest, it most likely came from a puppy mill, where animals live in the most horrific conditions you can imagine. We have videos on our website that would bring you to tears. We have rescued hundreds and hundreds of thousands of animals across this country from these situations where they are just stacked in cages. They live their entire lives in these wire cages and just horrible conditions. And you never see that. You see the cute, adorable little puppy in the window. They're the lucky ones. They're the ones who get out. But the mothers who live their entire lives in these facilities,
having more and more pups.
It's heartbreaking. And they're cash crop. They're not treated like companion animals. If you were to look at that situation and think of your own companion animal, dog or cat, in a cage like that, 24 hours a day with no human contact. I mean, some of these animals, after they were rescued, I mean, feeling the ground under their feet for the first time in their lives, feeling having somebody hold them and cuddle them and love them for the first time in their lives, it's heartbreaking.
And it's hard to work with an animal that's, it's like they're given to you with a setback because they've had no human contact. And
both physical and psychological. And by purchasing a dog from a pet store, you're helping to continue this in our country. And you need to go to your local shelter and even to a responsible breeder, somebody who raises the animals in a home environment, who cares about the breed, who will interview adopters, will take the animal back if it doesn't work out, and they won't sell to pet stores. They won't go through pet stores because they want to know where their dogs are going.
There are some breeders that are not responsible too, though, aren't there? Because I know a very nice lady who went to look for a dog, and she found that the older dog, had about 15 litters, and she said she couldn't believe it. She said, "I'm taking that one. She's not going to have another litter. She's not going to live her life like that anymore." And the lady bought that dog, and that dog is smart and sweet and wonderful, and God bless the lady for doing that. She saved that dog. So there are some breeders that are not responsible too.
You need to see where the animals are coming from. You can't just take their word for it. And you want to ask to see the sire and the dam, the mother and the father. You want to know where they're living. You want to see the situation. The backyard breeder. Puppy mill. Puppy mill is not only a mill with 700, 1,000 dogs in it out in the Midwest. I consider, even to the small scale, it really has to do with how the animals are raised, without any idea for their own social or physical well-being. It's a quick buck, and you look at the paper and look at the cost of some of these puppies in the paper, and it's amazing what people are charging for purebred puppies.
And a lot of the purebreds, they have problems because of the breeding.
Just like these,
certainly.
People out there who want a family dog that's going to live longer and be, a part of their family for quite some time should consider.
And after they've bred so many puppies, they shouldn't make her go on and on and on and on like that. That's irresponsible.
So
So there are federal laws that regulate them.
Well, the problem is the federal laws, the Animal Welfare Act, only regulates those who sell to pet stores or a retail establishment. Those who are selling directly to the public are exempt, and we're seeing more and more people selling animals over the internet. I get calls all the time from people who describe a situation to me, and they'll say, go on their website and you see these cute little dogs with bows in their hair and the big farmhouse, and what is on their website and what's reality are very different things. So you can't trust what you see on a website. And by getting an animal from, for firsthand like that, they're exempt from inspection. The United States Department of Agriculture inspects these mills, so the person who's selling directly to the public doesn't have to be inspected, doesn't have to be licensed, and even the mills that are licensed. We see violation after violation after violation, and their certificate isn't revoked. So even the ones that are inspected are a concern.
Wow.
So is there a puppy mill in our area here?
I can guarantee you that you have irresponsible breeders. Probably nothing to that extent, to that large size, but I'm sure there are small and mid-size mills here in Connecticut, as there are throughout the country, where animals are being bred irresponsibly without
Is there a list? Can people find a list of puppy mills?
There is
no breeders. There's no list.
No, there is no list. For one, there are thousands of them, and there's no one agency they'll have to report to. So, the HSUS doesn't publish a list because we wouldn't want people to think that just because this person is not on the list that they're a good breeder. So there's no such thing that exists.
So you really have to do
can't
your
they just
research.
outlaw puppy mills? Why can't they do that?
The HSUS has been working very hard on trying to pass state legislation that would create better standards for dogs, solid floors, requirement of at least an hour of daily exercise, things that are pretty basic.
1 hour of daily exercises.
And I don't think a lot
should
to ask
not be
for.
a lot to ask.
And there's a lot of rumors, mistruths, lies that are out there about our agenda, what we're trying to do. We're trying to end pet ownership, the HSUS, and nothing could be further from the truth. We celebrate animals every day, in our workplace, and I think that people need to do their own research. And decide
What
for
about
themselves.
the anti-cruelty laws? Wouldn't that apply to these puppy mills too?
It would, yes.
And so it does affect them. So how do you file a complaint? If you find that out, you can file a complaint, right? You can call again and so forth and so on, right?
You can. We have a pet seller complaint form on our website if people want to fill that out, and they can also, if they're now with the new law in Connecticut, they can go directly to the pet store for reimbursement. If it's a complaint against a puppy mill or a breeder, we have state laws relating to commercial breeders, but certainly make that complaint to either your local animal control police department or state animal control agency, and they'll take it from there.
We've only got about a minute or so.
Sounds like you have a lot of work on your plate.
Yes. Is there any
You're
last
doing
things
okay.
you want to tell our audience?
Well, I would want to say that there's a bevy of resources on our website. If you go to humanesociety.org on a variety of animal issues, I realize that people have sort of their pet issues that they like to work on, and if you want to join the fight against animal cruelty with us, I'd invite you to join us in that, and to volunteer at your local shelter to get your pet, your next pet from a shelter or a rescue group. The shelter, just really quickly, the Shelter Pet Project is a really exciting new ad council campaign that's rolling out $80 million worth of free advertising on how to get a shelter pet and the benefits of getting a pet from a shelter.
Hopefully
Really excited about that.
That's great.
Go online, Google Shelter Pet Project, and I think it's shelterpetproject.com, and find out about this exciting new campaign and get your next dog from a shelter.
Great.
That's awesome.
Are we out of time, Trace?
I think we are. I think we're wrapping up.
Okay, all I want to say is please, people, do what you can to help the animals, and do what you can to help the people who are abusing the animals. Help them too, because they need help. And let's get some of these laws passed. They need for you to help them. It's the only way this is going to be stopped. Okay? Thank you. All right, we're going to put her
information, Joanne's information
contact information. There it is, Joanne.
There it is.
Bourbeau, of the Humane Society of the United States. She can be reached by telephone at 802-368-2790 or fax 802-368-2756. Her address is there, P.O. Box 619, Jacksonville, Vermont, and the website is humanesociety.org.
Right. If you can't remember, get all this information quickly enough, just do the humanesociety.org, okay?
Yes.
www. And now, how to reach
for more
us.
Information.
You can email us your questions at healoutsidethebox@yahoo.com. And for show schedules, visit my website, www.rosemarylachance.com, or Tracy's at www.entirebeing.com. To contact us, you can contact me, Rosemary, at 203-627-7966, and Tracy at 203-232-3405. We're located at the East West Healing Arts Building, 410 State Street, Suite 2, in North Haven, Connecticut.
And if you'd like a copy of any of our shows, feel free to visit our website for more information and details.
And I'm going to read the quote for tonight from the Book of Courage. To achieve inner peace in troubling times, we have to stop and see the perfect equilibrium of the negative and the positive. The moment we discover this balance in our life and in this entire universe, true inner peace will return. Thank you for being with us tonight. I hope this show gave you a lot of information. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Please help those
Keep up your good
animals.
work.
Yes.
I will.
Please help those animals and help the people, okay?
As you look out through the window to the world you have made, always know you are the vision. See the truth, darkness fade.